Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're really getting into something I think many of you feel, this idea of digital dementia.
hmm
We're going to unpack how our, super connected lives might be changing the way our brains actually work. I mean, these devices,
hmm
they're basically extensions of us now, aren't they?
Absolutely. Always in hand, always on.
Right. But here's the big question we're tackling. Could this convenience, this constant connection, actually be costing us something really important, neurologically speaking?
Yeah.
We're diving into the science, looking at how, depending so much on tech, could be hitting our memory, our focus, our overall sharpness.
That's a great way to put it. And digital dementia, well, it's a term some neuroscientists started using. It points to this pattern of cognitive changes, really, driven by using digital devices so much.
So it's not like a formal diagnosis you'd get from a doctor.
No, not exactly. It's more descriptive of a kind of mental overload. Our phones, tablets, the constant information, they basically start doing the remembering for us.
I know I don't memorize phone numbers anymore. Not a single one.
Exactly. Or, you check Google for stuff you definitely used to know. And multitasking, we're flipping between screens all day.
Guilty.
And over time, this digital dependency, it can build up this sort of learned forgetfulness. The brain pathways for actively recalling things or thinking deeply, they get less efficient. It's kind of like physical muscles, right?
I mean, they weaken if you don't use them?
Precisely. They atrophy from underuse, just like if you stopped exercising.
Wow. Learned forgetfulness. That's what's a bit scary, isn't it? This weakening you mentioned, these pathways, is that permanent damage, or is it more like they're just sleeping?
That's a key question. Thankfully, it seems more like the latter dormant pathways. The brain is actually incredibly plastic, resilient.
Okay, that's good news.
It is. Our sources suggest these aren't necessarily permanent changes. It's more about reduced synaptic plasticity. If you make consistent effort, you can definitely reactivate those connections and reverse a lot of these effects.
Right. So how exactly does it happen? You mentioned 4 ways these digital habits hit our brain function.
Yeah, let's break those down. So first, there's reduced short-term memory capacity.
Okay.
When you're constantly jumping email, notifications, social media feed, back again, your attention just gets shattered into tiny pieces.
Fragmented.
Totally fragmented. And this constant switching, it doesn't just make you forget why you walked into a room, it actually overwhelms the brain's short-term memory system. It makes it genuinely harder to absorb new information because, well, you're never really focused long enough to properly encode it.
Never letting it sink in.
Exactly. Okay, second, weakened deep learning.
How does that work?
Well, think about how we consume content now. Endless scrolling, right? Skimming headlines, watching short clips instead of, say, a full documentary or reading a whole article.
Yeah, guilty again. Quick hits of info.
Right, and that encourages very shallow processing. Our brains get amazing at skimming, at picking up surface-level stuff really quickly.
But not great at understanding deeply.
Precisely. Poor comprehension, poor long-term retention. It's like we're training our brains for shallow consumption.
Okay, what's the third point?
Third, and this one's huge, disrupted sleep and brain repair.
The blue light issue.
Yep. That blue light from our screens, especially later in the day, it messes with our melatonin production. Melatonin tells your body it's time to sleep.
Right.
So if that's suppressed, your sleep cycle gets disrupted. And without that deep restorative sleep, your brain misses its crucial maintenance window.
Maintenance window.
Yeah, that's when it consolidates memories, moving them from short-term, sort of fragile storage into more permanent, long-term storage. That process is absolutely vital. If it's constantly interrupted, well, memory really suffers.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And the last one?
The last one is what the sources call digital offloading. This directly weakens our ability to recall things ourselves.
Offloading, like outsourcing your brain's job.
Exactly. Your smartphone remembers everything, right? Birthdays, appointments, how to get somewhere, your grocery list. So you don't have to remember. It saves time, sure, but the downside is you slowly lose the ability to remember even basic things without help. Your brain just doesn't get the practice anymore.
Okay, I have to admit, that resonates. You mentioned forgetting why you walked into a room. I literally did that last week. Stood in the kitchen just completely blank. Is that one of the signs? Or what else should people, look out for?
That is a perfect example, actually, a classic early sign. You might also find yourself frequently misplacing things like your keys or glasses,
Mhm.
or having trouble remembering details from a conversation you just had. Difficulty concentrating on one thing without that itch to check your phone is another big
Yeah,
one.
that constant urge.
Right, and just feeling mentally wiped out, really exhausted after being online for a while, that's cognitive fatigue setting in.
And you said this is pretty common now.
Very common. And look, if this sounds familiar to you listening, you're definitely not alone. Studies show average screen time has literally quadrupled in the last decade. Especially for adults working online, it's just ballooned.
Quadrupled.
Wow. That's quite a statistic. Okay, so it sounds like there are real challenges here, but what can we actually do about it? Is there a way to hit reset, to detox our brains from this digital overload?
Absolutely, there is. And that's the empowering part. The sources talk about a digital detox. It's basically a plan to reset your brain and find a healthier balance with technology, improve that cognitive health.
Okay, I'm listening. What does it involve?
There are 5 key steps they suggest. First, tech-free mornings.
Great.
Meaning, try to avoid screens for, say, the first hour after you wake up. Let your brain boot up naturally without that immediate hit of stimulation and information.
Instead of grabbing the phone first thing.
Exactly. It lets you set your own agenda for the day mentally rather than just reacting. It's like a warm-up for your brain.
Okay, number 1, tech-free mornings. What's next?
Second, scheduled screen breaks. You might have heard of the 20-20-20 rule.
Remind me. Every 20 minutes you're looking at a screen, you look away for 20 seconds at something about 20 feet away. It gives your eyes a break, but also your brain a mini reset. Maybe add a quick stretch or walk around too.
Simple, but probably effective.
Okay.
Third,
Third,
yeah,
consider a digital Sabbath.
a whole day off.
Yeah, pick one day a week, maybe a Saturday or Sunday, to unplug completely from any tech that isn't essential. No email, no social media, maybe even limit streaming.
What's the benefit of going that long?
It really lets your brain switch modes, allows that default mode network to kick in that's crucial for creativity, thinking deeply, self-reflection, stuff that just doesn't happen when you're constantly bombarded. Use the time for, nature, people, hobbies that don't involve a screen.
Right, real-world stuff.
Okay, number 4,
Fourth, you need to actively rebuild those mental muscles.
like brain training.
Kind of, yeah. Practice actual memory exercises. Try memorizing a few phone numbers again, or a short poem, or your shopping list instead of typing it. Do puzzles, play strategy games like chess, maybe even journal by hand.
Exactly. These things actively engage and reactivate those memory pathways we talked about. You're basically exercising those connections that got a bit weak.
Makes sense. And the last step.
Finally, number 5, improve your sleep hygiene. This loops back to the sleep disruption point.
So, less screen time before bed.
Definitely. Aim to stop using screens at least an hour before you plan to sleep. You could also try blue light filtering glasses in the evening, or maybe just read a physical book to wind down, a real paper book.
Okay, that's a solid 5-step plan. Tech-free mornings, screen breaks, a digital Sabbath, rebuilding mental muscles, and better sleep hygiene. That gives us a clear roadmap. But given the strain we put on our brains, is there anything else? Can we actively support our brain's recovery naturally alongside doing all this?
That's a really important point, because tackling it from the inside out nutritionally can also be helpful. So yes, alongside those lifestyle changes, the sources mention that certain natural supplements can play a supportive role. They give Cognicare Pro as an example.
Cognicare Pro, what's that?
It's described as a scientifically formulated supplement aimed at supporting, memory recall, focus, mental clarity, and providing some neuroprotection.
And how does it supposedly do that? What's in it?
It contains several key ingredients. There's Acopa monnieri, which research suggests can enhance memory retention. Then ginkgo biloba, which is pretty well known for improving blood flow to the brain.
Okay.
Also, lion's mane mushroom, that's been studied for promoting nerve growth factor, potentially helping with nerve regeneration. And phosphatidylserine, which is important for healthy nerve cell membranes and communication within the brain.
So a combination of things targeting different aspects.
Exactly. The idea is that they work together synergistically to help the brain combat that mental fatigue and overload from all the digital stress, helping it recover and function better.
That's interesting, the synergistic idea. How solid is the science on that combined effect, specifically for reversing digital burnout? Is that still developing?
That's a fair question. Our sources suggest that while the individual ingredients, like bacopa or lion's mane, have quite a bit of research behind them for cognitive benefits generally,
Right.
The specific synergistic impact of this particular blend, especially framed as digital stress recovery, is definitely more of an emerging area. The underlying theory makes sense, targeting multiple pathways like blood flow, neurotransmitters, cell health, to create a more comprehensive support system for the brain.
Creating the right environment for recovery, essentially.
Precisely. It's about giving the brain the best possible conditions to heal and perform optimally.
That makes sense.
Hmm.
You know, it really brings us back to a core point, doesn't it? Technology itself.
Yeah.
It isn't inherently bad.
No, it's a tool.
It's really how we engage with it that makes all the difference.
Absolutely. Our brains fundamentally evolved over millennia to think deeply, to remember complex information, to create, to connect face to face, not really to just passively consume endless streams of flickering data.
So the takeaway for everyone listening is really about taking back control. Setting those healthy boundaries with your tech, like we discussed. And maybe actively nourishing your brain, too, whether through lifestyle or potentially supportive supplements. You can manage your memory and mental clarity, even in this super wired world.
Your mind really does deserve better than just constant digital burnout.
Reclaim it.
Yeah.
Start today.